I'm Lisa Mustard, marriage and family therapist, coach, and host of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. And I'm sharing new Put It Into Practice episodes each week where I'll bring you tips, ideas, and suggestions on how to up-level your emotional and mental health. And I'll be covering a variety of topics in these episodes to help you live your best life. Well, hey friend, welcome back to another Put It Into Practice episode. It's Saturday and I hope you're having a great weekend so far. I know this episode sounds a little different than the rest of my shows, and it's because I'm using Libsyn's Build with Studio to record and create this episode. And I love testing out new tech, and Build with Libsyn allows me to record and produce an episode without my audio editor getting involved. And my audio editor wasn't available this week to produce my show, so I thought I'd give Build with Libsyn another go. And I've used it before for another episode, and I'm pretty pleased with the turnout. So I'm gonna use it this week, and I would love your feedback. If you like it, if you don't, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I'm not quite sure I'm keen on this music. It's a little, I don't know, it's not really my style, but I'm just gonna go with it. So this week's episode, I'm answering another listener question, and it's how do you heal a broken heart, specifically when a romantic relationship ends? This is such a great question. And I'm sure that the majority of us have experienced this, especially if you are over 20 something years old. And I know, definitely in high school had breakups, college had breakups, but my first really big heartbreak was in my late 20s when the guy who was my boyfriend back then, who is actually now my husband, broke up with me. So this question took me straight back to that time in my life when I was really going through heartbreak. I was shattered, completely shattered. And now the reason he broke up with me was because I was a really difficult and unhappy person to be around at times. I was unhappy in my career. I was highly emotionally reactive. And I honestly thought that it was his job to make me happy. I really didn't know who I was or what I wanted in my life. And I thought that being in a relationship with him would solve all of those problems. And while the breakup definitely hurt, looking back, I can tell you it is probably the best thing he's ever done for me. Yes, I definitely went through the grieving process of our relationship ending, but I also decided at that time in my life that it was actually time for me to take responsibility of how I was showing up in the world. And I was projecting all of this stuff onto him, and I finally realized I needed to go to counseling and figure my stuff out. And that is what I did. And looking back at the breakup and kind of putting this episode together, I can see how I did the things or these tips that I'm going to share with you in this episode. So I can relate to them firsthand. I, at the time, didn't know I was doing it, but now that I look back on it with the tips I came up with, I feel like I was doing it. So if you've never been through a breakup before and you're sad and hurt, I want you to listen in, okay? So tip number 1 is to understand the grieving process. Now, this is just a short little take on the grieving process, but the first step in healing a broken heart is to understand that it is okay to grieve the loss of the relationship. Grief is a natural and normal response to loss, and it often involves a range of emotions, including sadness, anger, guilt, and even relief. So it's important to allow yourself to feel all of these emotions rather than trying to suppress them or ignore them. So give yourself the time and the space to grieve and feel your emotions. However, try not to dwell on them for too long. Now, how long is too long? That is, I don't know. You'll know when it's been too much grieving or it's taking too long. But I want to suggest, if you, I like to say, give yourself a pity party, feel all the sadness, feel all the loneliness, but just don't try to let it bring you down too much. I know, easier said than done. I remember being so heartbroken when he broke up with me, for sure. Okay, tip number 2, and this is probably what helped me the most, was getting out of that sadness, that stage of sadness, was focusing on self-care and self-improvement. And you can focus on exercise, healthy eating, personal growth and development. It's really, really important to take care of yourself during this time. And this, like I said, may mean doing things like eating well, definitely getting your sleep, getting in some exercise, and avoiding alcohol and drugs. Taking care of yourself physically can also help you feel better emotionally and mentally. And another part of self-care may mean cutting off contact with your ex, at least for a little while, to give yourself time and space to heal. And you have every right to ask for that, okay? To cut your, to not have connection or contact with him or her. Number 3, reach out for support. It can be helpful to reach out to friends, family, or support group during this time. And talking to someone you trust about your feelings can be a great way to process your emotions and get the support you need. I can't recommend that enough. Talking to somebody is always a great thing. And tip number 4, it's important to find healthy ways to cope with your emotions. And this might mean like journaling, meditating, or engaging in a creative activity like painting or writing. The key is to find something that helps you release your emotions in a positive way. Positive way here. Keep yourself busy with hobbies, friends, and other activities. And like I said earlier, surround yourself with supportive people as well as positive people. And tip number 5, it's important to give yourself time to heal, and healing from a broken heart does take time, and it's different for everyone. And so don't be too hard on yourself if you're not feeling better right away. And remember that it is okay to take things one day at a time. Tip number 6 is when you're ready, take the time to reflect on the relationship and try to learn from the experience. Let me say that one again. When you're ready, take time to reflect on the relationship and try to learn from the experience. But don't blame yourself or be too hard on yourself. And that is what I did when I was going to counseling, is I was taking the time to reflect on myself in the relationship and how was I showing up in that relationship and what was I projecting onto that relationship. Okay, it's important. It was important for me to learn from the experience because I didn't want to be that same person in the next relationship I had. Because if he and I didn't get back together, I knew eventually I would, maybe meet somebody, and I didn't want to repeat the same patterns again. Okay, it was like I had to learn to be different moving forward. All right. So try to see the breakup as a chance for growth and new opportunities rather than as a failure or a setback. I love that advice right there. It's similar to what I said and, how to handle failure, put it into practice episode is see it as growth and, failing forward or leaning into something new, something different. What can you learn about yourself? What new things might present themselves that you weren't open to, but now that you've going through this experience, maybe pay attention to what is presenting itself. And of course, seek professional help if needed, such as therapy or counseling. You don't need to go through this alone. And sometimes working with a counselor can be what's best for you, especially if you are taking part in risky behaviors to cope with your feelings. Let me say that one again. So if you are finding yourself drinking or doing drugs, or maybe being promiscuous with sexual partners and you don't normally do that, or gambling, or anything that's outside of your normal behavior, but it can also put you in some risky situations, then it is definitely time for you to talk with a counselor because there might be some other things going on that you're not aware of. And if you're looking for a mental health professional, I have some resources and recommendations in the show notes, so head over there to learn more about what's out there for you. All right. There you have it, my answer to this listener's question. I hope you found it helpful. Y'all, remember, everyone heals at their own pace, and it's important to be patient and kind to yourself during this time. And not everyone heals the same way. Healing a broken heart isn't a linear path or process. You may find yourself having good and bad days, and that is completely normal. So if you have a tip for dealing with a broken heart, let me know. Feel free to send me an email, lisa@lisamustard.com, or find me on the socials, mainly Facebook and Instagram, and send me a direct message. As I close this episode out, once again, I know the music was different. I know the transitions are different. I don't know like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of this music, but we're just going to go with it this week because Chelsea, my amazing editor, had a lot going on this week. And I actually wanted to try this Libsyn Build with Studio again. Because, if you have an idea for a podcast, you can just get a membership with Libsyn and start podcasting today. It's really that simple. If I can figure this Build with Studio thing out, anybody can. But it's important to stress that these episodes are not meant to take the place of any work you're doing with your therapist or doctor. In fact, please run these ideas by your counselor or doctor before you act on them to make sure you are ready for them or even a fit for the suggestions. And I can't stress this enough that each person is unique and their situation is unique. So please talk to your doctor before starting anything new I might be suggesting. And once again, y'all know the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard and the information provided by me is solely intended for informational and entertainment purposes and is not a substitute for advice, diagnosis, or treatment regarding medical or mental health conditions. Although I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, the views expressed on my podcast and my website or any related content should not be taken as medical or psychiatric advice. Always consult with your physician before making any decisions related to your physical or mental health. So I hope you found this Put It Into Practice episode helpful. Let me know. Send me an email at lisa@lisamustard.com or send me a DM on Instagram. And I'd also love to hear from you about what topics you'd like me to cover in these Put It Into Practice episodes. So let me know what questions you have or give me some suggestions. You can ask for relationship help, anxiety tips, whatever. I'll see what I can offer you for help and ideas. Thanks for listening to The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit my website, lisamustard.com, for more content and to connect with me. And I'd love it if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.